Hello, thanks for inviting me to your conference. I'm delighted to be here. And I wish you every luck with your organisation. When I started Transgender Trend in the UK, that was 2015. And I knew then that there were problems in Spain because I was contacted by Spanish parents. We've come a long way in the UK since 2015. When I started, I wasn't being listened to, and I was treated with hostility by civil servants, politicians who judged me, who had learned, I think, that everybody who questioned the transition of children was automatically a bigot. That's changing, and the press in the UK have done a good job in broadcasting the real issues with this over the last few years. We've also had big developments in health, which really began, I think, properly in 2020 with the Kiribati court case, where we did a judicial review against the Tavistock, and Kiribati was a detransitioner, and that case and the initial result from that case led to worldwide attention. And I think the world was introduced to the word detransitioner and really saw for perhaps the first time what these medical treatments really did to children's bodies. And it resulted in the NHS, our National Health Service, commissioning an independent review of the Tavistock Clinic, which is the clinic for children and adolescents in the UK. So what we have from that is Dr. Hilary Cass, a paediatrician, led that independent review and produced an interim report. So now we have independent evidence of what happened at the Tavistock, the mistakes that were made, and how the service was unsafe for children. The Tavistock will be closed down, and Dr. Cass is setting up regional services, which will run along a different model, more aligned with normal paediatric health services. And what this has given us does relate to schools, because the approach at the Tavistock was the gender affirmative approach. And I think people don't realise that the gender affirmative approach is a political approach. The previous watchful waiting model didn't cause any harm to children. Children were allowed to grow up. Those that needed extra help or therapy got it. It wasn't doing nothing, but children were left alone. But as we know, children now are being judged as being so-called transgender from the earlier stages if their behaviour doesn't align with the most regressive stereotypes for their sex. And adolescents are learning online that they're probably transgender if they are going through any normal adolescent problems, particularly girls, particularly in terms of developing sexually, body hatred and disassociation, those kinds of issues. So we've seen this enormous rise in the number of referrals to the Tavistock over the years. And the message I'm trying to get through to schools and to the Minister for Education is that the gender affirmative model that was unsafe for children at the Tavistock Clinic is also an unsafe social experiment on children, on this generation of children in schools. And we don't know if social transition in schools is safe. We certainly know that that's what's going on in schools, that we've had a report out recently to show that it seems to be quite widespread, and we certainly think we don't know, but we certainly get a lot of letters from parents about what's going on in their child's school, and children have been socially transitioned behind their parents' backs. Of course, this is worrying because children may go on to, or perhaps we're making it more likely for children to go on and want medical interventions and then be on a medical pathway for life. So, but again, parents are painted as bigots and being unsupportive unless they automatically affirm their daughter as their son or the son as their daughter. And of course, the most thoughtful parents are questioning this, know their children best, and yet are being ignored and pushed out by schools, which really needs to be tackled, because schools do not have the authority to take that responsibility away from parents for the protection and safeguarding of their own child. We trust schools to be in loco parentis, we say, which is taking the place of parents, and we expect the same kind of care and level of safeguarding as we would give our own children. So there are all sorts of issues in children's schools. Drag queen story hour is ripe. Schools are setting up LGBTQ plus groups without any scrutiny of how this is impacting on children. And we know that older children in these clubs in schools are leading the younger children to think that they have a gender identity that they must explore. And they are sort of hotbeds for affirmation, really. So the issue of gender affirmation, we must get out of schools. We should not have politics in schools. We should not have one side of a very contentious political debate being presented to children as fact. So we're a lot of our energy is taken in acting with policymakers. We talk to Dr. Hilary Cass, we talk to all sorts of people behind the scenes, and we write briefings, etc., in order to open people's eyes to what is really happening in schools and how our children are being put in an unsafe situation, just as they were at the Tavistock. I do think that parents have a lot of power. So I really urge you to always try and get a few parents together, because you're safer that way. But, you know, always challenge your school, ask to see what they're teaching the children, go in politely, but do challenge it, because the more parents who challenge what's happening in schools, the more change happens. And we find that some schools are very quickly amenable to thinking through what it is that they're actually teaching and understanding what the issues are. Other schools are completely captured and won't budge. So we really need, and what we're waiting for is Department for Education guidance. And we're working very hard to try to help the Department for Education make that guidance absolutely watertight for schools. So good luck to you all. I'm really behind you. I know this is happening all over the world, all over Europe. And a lot of women and some men are working very hard to change things. So good luck to everybody. And you have my support. Thanks.